The studio lights burned bright, the audience clapped, and the hosts of The View settled into what was supposed to be a light-hearted conversation with Adam Sandler about his latest project. But what began as casual banter quickly twisted into a tense standoff when Joy Behar, known for her sharp tongue and unapologetic digs, decided to press Adam with questions that went far beyond the movie and instead poked at his personal life, career choices, and even his comedic style. At first, Adam laughed it off, cracking jokes in his signature laid-back way, trying to diffuse the tension with humor, but as Joy's remarks grew more pointed, mocking his early work, questioning his success, and even taking subtle jabs at his family, his smile began to fade, his jaw tightened, and the audience could feel the shift in the air. Adam leaned forward, his voice louder and sharper than anyone had ever heard on daytime TV, cutting Joy off mid-sentence with a fiery outburst that silenced the entire panel. His frustration boiling over as years of criticism came spilling out in raw, unfiltered honesty, and for a moment the cheerful set of The View transformed into a battleground where laughter had no place, only shock, tension, and the unmistakable fury of a man pushed too far. Joy Behar, never one to back down from a verbal sparring match, tried to maintain her trademark smirk as she interjected, "Oh, come on, Adam, don't take yourself so seriously. It's just jokes." But her dismissive tone only fanned the flames, making the moment even more volatile. The audience, who had expected a lighthearted exchange, now sat on the edge of their seats, some gasping, others whispering nervously, as Adam Sandler's usually goofy, easygoing persona gave way to a sharp intensity that most had never seen before. He shot back with cutting precision, pointing out how Joy had built her reputation on tearing others down, accusing her of crossing the line from comedy into cruelty, his voice reverberating through the studio with an anger so real that the other hosts began to shift uncomfortably in their seats. Whoopi Goldberg leaned forward, trying to intervene with calm words, but Adam was too fired up, his passion pouring out as he defended not only himself but every actor, comedian, and entertainer who had ever been belittled under the guise of humor, leaving Joy visibly rattled for perhaps the first time in years. The cameras kept rolling, the tension unedited, as viewers at home witnessed Adam Sandler erupt in a way that proved he was no longer the man willing to laugh everything off. This time, he was demanding respect. The clash escalated further when Adam, his voice firm and unwavering, leaned closer to the panel and declared that while comedy had always been about laughter, connection, and even a touch of self-deprecation, what Joy was doing was something else entirely, tearing people down for sport, mocking vulnerabilities, and dressing it up as wit. The audience, stunned by his candor, erupted into mixed reactions, half applauding his courage to speak out, half too shocked to react, while Joy's composure began to crack, her usual quick comebacks faltering under the weight of Adam's raw conviction. His words weren't just about himself anymore, they carried the frustrations of countless entertainers who had been the butt of cruel jokes, and as he gestured with his hands, his passion spilling out, it became clear this wasn't simply an eruption, but a reckoning on live television. The other co-hosts exchanged nervous glances, unsure whether to intervene or let the moment ride, knowing full well that anything they said could either ignite or extinguish the firestorm brewing at the table. Joy tried to muster her usual laugh, but it sounded hollow, even forced, as Adam's intensity left no room for dismissiveness. His presence filled the set like a storm, and for the first time, the power dynamics on The View shifted away from the panel and into the hands of the guest who refused to be laughed at any longer. As the tension thickened, the cameras zoomed in on Adam Sandler's face, flushed with passion, eyes blazing with a determination that left no doubt he had reached his breaking point. While Joy Behar, visibly unsettled, shifted in her chair, her trademark smirk now replaced by a forced tightness around her mouth. Adam raised his voice again, but this time with measured authority, saying that while he had spent decades being the punching bag for critics and late-night jokes, he had earned his place in Hollywood through grit, resilience, and a deep love for making people laugh, not by tearing others down, and he wouldn't sit quietly while anyone, even Joy, tried to belittle that. The audience broke into loud applause, many rising from their seats, as his words struck a chord not just with them but with viewers at home, who were already flooding social media with reactions. Joy attempted a rebuttal, her voice shaky as she muttered something about thin skin, but Adam didn't let her off the hook. he leaned forward, his tone quieter but sharper, cutting through the air like a blade. Respect isn't a punchline, Joy. And if you can't see that, maybe you're the joke. The audience gasped audibly, the co-hosts froze, and the atmosphere on set transformed into a moment of television history. Raw, unscripted, and unforgettable. The weight of Adam's words hung in the air like a thundercloud, the silence broken only by the murmur of the audience, some cheering wildly, others stunned into disbelief that anyone had dared to confront Joy Behar so directly on her own turf. Adam leaned back slightly, his chest heaving as though he had finally unleashed years of pent-up frustration, while Joy fidgeted with her cue cards, her hands shaking just enough for the cameras to catch. Whoopi Goldberg cleared her throat, trying to regain control of the show, but the moment had already escaped the panel's grasp. This was no longer just another celebrity interview, it was a live reckoning, a cultural moment playing out before millions of viewers. Adam, not content to let the tension dissipate, pressed further, explaining that comedians had a responsibility to uplift as much as they entertained, and that tearing people apart might earn cheap laughs, but it left scars far deeper than anyone admitted. The audience erupted into applause once again, emboldening Adam as Joy's face turned red, her usual arsenal of comebacks failing her in real time. For the first time in years, the balance of power on The View shifted completely, and Joy, who had built a career on being the sharpest tongue at the table, was left speechless, her silence serving as the loudest admission of defeat. The energy in the studio had become electric, almost unbearable, as Adam Sandler sat there, no longer the goofy, easygoing comedian the audience had expected but a man transformed, standing his ground with a fiery authenticity that left everyone glued to the moment. Joy Behar, usually quick with biting remarks, seemed caught in a rare and uncomfortable vulnerability, her eyes darting toward the producers off stage as if searching for a lifeline, but none came. Because this was live television, unedited, raw, and impossible to contain. Adam leaned forward once more, his voice lower now but laced with conviction, and he spoke not only to Joy but to the millions watching, reminding them that comedy wasn't meant to divide or demean but to bring people together, to make life's struggles lighter, not heavier. The sincerity in his tone contrasted so starkly with Joy's earlier barbs that the audience, sensing the depth of his truth, burst into applause louder than ever, some even chanting his name as if the show had suddenly turned into a rally. The other co-hosts looked torn between defending their longtime colleague and acknowledging the righteousness of Adam's stance. But none dared interrupt, because they too could feel that history was being made at their table. Joy attempted a laugh to diffuse the intensity, but it rang hollow, and Adam's piercing gaze silenced her once again. The message clear. He had nothing left to prove, and he would not let anyone diminish the value of his work, his journey, or his dignity ever again. By now, social media was already exploding in real time. Clips of Adam's fiery exchange being clipped and shared across platforms as hashtags like #AdamOnTheView and #RespectComedy began trending within minutes, and the studio audience, sensing they were witnessing something unforgettable, reacted with a mixture of roars, cheers, and gasps that only fueled the intensity of the moment. Adam, his voice steady but eyes still burning, turned slightly toward the audience and thanked them for getting it, a simple acknowledgement that drew another round of applause and reminded everyone that his bond with fans had always been rooted in authenticity, not shock value. Joy, visibly rattled, tried once more to regain her footing by leaning on her trademark sarcasm, muttering, "Well, I guess you've rehearsed this speech," but the jab fell flat, met with awkward silence instead of laughter, proving that the room was no longer on her side. Adam seized the opening, delivering one final blow not with anger but with calm certainty, saying, "I don't rehearse respect, Joy. I live it." The words hit harder than any insult could, leaving the panel speechless and the audience on its feet, clapping and cheering as the cameras captured Joy's tight-lipped smile, the smile of someone who had just lost a battle she never expected to fight.